Oh, it's early morning. The taxi is here. I'm off to the airport before daylight appears. I've got my tickets. My passport is in the case. Just lock the front door and say goodbye to this place until I've been there myself.
It's 7:20. They arrive at noon. I'll make my way to the airport soon. I've got the itinerary. In here is the group list. I don't think there's anything I've possibly missed to help them see for themselves.
Global Fairplays, tour to Israel. Gather round.
That's us.
Keep up. We're due to board our flight any minute now. Just before we do, I want to remind you that this is a slightly unusual tour. More investigation than sightseeing. What I'd say to you is to watch, listen, and learn. And feel free to ask any questions.
Global Fairplays flight to Tel Aviv, now boarding
Let's go.
at Gate 7.
Israel is the only Jewish state in the world. It has a population of 7.8 million, 75% Jewish, 21% Arab, and 4% other minorities. This small country is about the same size as Wales and is surrounded by 22 Arab states. The immediate Arab neighbours are, to the east, Jordan, to the southwest, Egypt, to the northeast, Syria, and to the north, Lebanon. To the west of Israel is the Mediterranean Sea with its beautiful coastline. Bordering Egypt to the near southwest is the Hamas-controlled Palestinian Authority of Gaza. And to the immediate east is Judea and Samaria, or as some people may say, the West Bank.
Our flight path is on the screen in front of you, so you can follow our progress as we head down to Israel. We are due to arrive at Ben Gurion Airport at 12 noon. Conditions are good, so enjoy your flight.
If you're really going to understand what's happening here in the present, we have to visit the past. People think that Israel is a relatively modern country, only 65 years old.
Well, it is, isn't it?
Well, in some respects, yes. The modern state of Israel was formed in 1948, but history in the region goes back for thousands of years. That is why we have come here to the Museum of Past Times, to track back to the beginning of our story and our early history. So, I've booked seats for us, so let's go on in and sit down.
Welcome to the Museum of Past Times and to our time travellers. They will take you on a journey through our early history. Sit back, watch and learn.
Our nation's story, begins with one man, a regular guy called Abraham. He lived with his wife in a place called Haran when God told him to go to a distant land. It wasn't easy. He had to trust. But obeying God was an absolute must. God had promised him a land and descendants too. An amazing future not yet in view. Abraham was first of the patriarchs, the founding father of the Jewish nation. He had a son, Isaac, who had twin sons, Esau and Jacob. Abraham, Isaac and Jacob were referred to as the patriarchs.
Wait. Didn't Abraham have other children too?
To be continued.
Tell me more.
Before Isaac was born, Abraham had a son called Ishmael. Although God had promised Abraham and his wife, Sarah, a son, the child was a long time coming. So Sarah decided she'd help things get along by getting Abraham to sleep with her maid, Hagar, and so Ishmael was born. Ishmael is considered by some to be the forefather of the Arabs.
Sarah asked Abraham to send Hagar and his son away, but God had made amazing promises about Ishmael, that kings would come from him and he would have vast lands. However, God said that his special promise, called a covenant, was with Isaac. His son Jacob had 12 sons, and from them came the 12 tribes of Israel, and so a nation was formed.
And once you form a nation, you have to have rules.
They are the people's government tools.
God handed Moses 10 great commands
on tablets of stones that he held in his hands.
And now the 603 laws were added to those.
Enough to keep everybody on their toes.
To be law-abiding meant obeying them all.
Being observant was no easy call.
When Moses received God's laws, the Israelites were in the desert on their way from Egypt, where they had been slaves. Sadly, although God had rescued them from Egypt in an amazing way, they doubted his goodness and didn't believe his promises. It took another 40 years before Joshua led them into the promised land and they settled there. Here you can see how the land was allocated among the 12 tribes.
After years of being ruled by different judges, the Israelites decided that they wanted a king. Then they'd be like the other nations around them. Saul was chosen, but his reign came to a bloody end, and he was replaced by Israel's most famous king.
It was King David who united the kingdom and made Jerusalem the capital over 3,000 years ago. God made a promise or covenant with David too, that his house and his kingdom would endure forever.
David's son Solomon extended Israel's place.
But rebellion followed, which divided the place.
Israel and Judah, two kingdoms not one.
But most of the kings didn't get the job done.
So they both were invaded. Assyria took Israel.
But the Babylonian exile caused Judah to fail.
But the people returned, as the prophets foretold.
Then 600 years later, Jesus was born.
Through his birth, life, and death, Jesus fulfilled many Old Testament prophecies. Our timeline is nearly complete, but there is one event that we must mention. In AD 70, the occupying Roman forces set fire to Jerusalem, destroying as much as they could. They sent the majority of the Jewish population into exile, and only a small number remained. They renamed the region Palestina, or Palestine. Roman rule continued until 313 AD. In every place where they settled, the Jews were subject to opposition, ridicule, and hatred.
The fate of our Jewish people throughout the centuries.
Wandering and waiting.
Hurting and hated.
Arrested, accused.
Restricted, refused.
Consigned to the ghetto.
But unwilling to let go.
Next year in Jerusalem.
Next year in Jerusalem.
Next year in Jerusalem. That was the cry of many of the Jews in exile in different countries throughout the world. Many had known persecution, and during the late 1800s, the situation was particularly bad in Russia, where the army regularly carried out pogroms or targeted attacks on Jews in their villages. It was during this time that a movement called Zionism began. It captured the desire in the Jewish heart to return to their ancient homeland. Let's meet a Zionist of that period to learn more.
I've just come back from the first Zionist Congress held in Basel, Switzerland. It was a long way to travel, but I'm so glad I made the journey to see so many campaigning hard for a return to the land and for Jewish statehood to be resumed there. They say the British government could be in favour of the Zionist dream. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
In 1917, World War I was drawing to a close. The British were fighting against the Ottoman Turks in the Middle East and marched into Jerusalem, ending 400 years of Ottoman Turkish rule.
So, I say Ponsonby, it's dashed hot in these foreign climes. These mosquitoes eating me alive. Still, isn't it absolutely spiffing that we've seen off those rotten Turks? Still don't know how we managed it.
Fortescue, we managed it because the Arabs helped us.
That's jolly decent of them, isn't it? I've always said there's more to the Arabs than meets the eye. That's what being public-spirited is all about. Good on them.
Yes. Don't carry on so, Fortescue. It's not exactly an act of charity, you know.
What do you mean, old chap?
Look, it's quite simple, really. They helped us because we promised them an Arab state if they did.
I don't understand, old boy. I thought that now we're in control here, our job is to do what the Balfour Declaration states. And what the international community expects us to do. To create a Jewish homeland.
Well, that's right, it is.
Well, how are we expected to create an Arab state and a Jewish homeland? Surely they're mutually exclusive.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? I say, be a good chap and put the kettle on. My mouth's frightfully dry.
Right here, old boy.
The Treaty of Versailles was signed and the new League of Nations was formed with a mission to bring world peace. With the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in Europe and the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East, the world map was being redrawn. And, as the British were already occupying what was then known as Palestine, they were given the mandate or political authority to create a Jewish homeland.
Borders, Boundaries and Mapping Agency, Albert Mainwaring speaking.
Who is it, sir?
Quiet, Briggs! It's the Office of the League of Nations. Can't get a word they're saying with you interrupting.
Sorry, sir. The League of Nations? I wonder what they want.
My apologies. Some interference on the line. Yes, we can certainly do that for you. We'll get packed and leave immediately.
Where are we going, sir?
We have a new assignment, Briggs. In the Middle East, with a map of the land being considered for a Jewish homeland. You get the equipment, pack your things, we'll leave immediately.
Great.
Right, Briggs. Let's get started. Have you brought everything?
Yes, sir. Boundary markers and everything else is present.
Excellent. This is the map we're working to.
Right.
Now let's just see where the boundary lines lie. Yes. Okay. I'll do the measuring and you place the boundary markers.
Okay, sir.
A mandate to the Brits was given.
Create a Jewish home.
An area of land agreed where they might settle down. Dissection. It's in the news. So many views.
Problems?
Yes, it seems the Arabs aren't happy with this arrangement, and the British have decided to revise their plans.
What?
Let's make the necessary changes.
Okay.
But things were not as they appeared. The Arabs staked their claim.
We want a state as you agreed.
And so the Brits reframed. Dissection loomed. It's in the news.
The area for the Jewish homeland is a lot smaller now.
Just get on with it, Briggs. It's not for us to question the politicians.
Okay.
An Arab revolt hindered the establishment of the Jewish homeland. The focus turned to Europe, where things were changing. Adolf Hitler's rise to power heralded the worst atrocities ever carried out by a so-called civilized society, and he had one race in particular in his sights. Out of the ashes, are there any alive? Out of the ashes, can a body survive? Out of the ashes, though you've wasted away, the scene incomprehensible, no words left to say. Out of hell's fury, can the captive be made free? Out of the carnage, can the broken be healed? Out of the terror, can rest ever calm? Out of the torment, can peace ever be won? Out of the nightmare, can hope come alive? Out of the horror, can longing still thrive? Can life overcome what death sought hard to steal? Can light reignite from the darkest defeat? Out of the ashes, can a father claim his child? Out of the ashes, can a husband find his bride? Out of the ashes, can a people be reborn? Out of the ashes, can a nation be reformed? Be reformed. When the full extent of the horrors of the Holocaust came to light, the matter of a Jewish homeland was raised again. In 1947, the United Nations put forward a resolution for a partition plan. They allocated 3 areas of land for a Jewish state and 3 areas of land for an Arab state. Votes were cast, and the resolution was carried by 33 votes to 13. 10 countries abstained, including Great Britain. Accepting the vote of the United Nations and after the last British soldier had left the region, David Ben-Gurion, on behalf of the Jewish people, declared statehood.
Good evening, world. I'm here live in the city of Tel Aviv. Today, the 14th of May, 1948, is an historic day. Following the United Nations vote and resolution of 1947, which allocated land to both Jews and Arabs. Today is the day in which the British mandate over Palestine has expired. The Jewish People Council has gathered here at the Tel Aviv Museum to approve a proclamation declaring the establishment of the State of Israel.
זוהי זכותו הטבעית של העם היהודי להיות ככל עם ועם עומד ברשות עצמו במדינתו הריבונית אשר תפתח לרווחה את שערי המולדת לכל יהודי ותעניק לעם היהודי מעמד של אומה שוות זכויות בתוך העמים. לפיכך נתכנסנו אנו חברי מועצת העם, נציגי היישוב העברי והתנועה הציונית, ביום סיום המנדט הבריטי על ארץ ישראל. מתוקף זכותנו הטבעית וההיסטורית, ועל יסוד החלטת עצרת האומות המאוחדות, אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל, היא מדינת ישראל.
Your time here at the Museum of Pastimes is now over. We hope you've enjoyed your visit.
Today was fascinating. I had no idea how rich in history this land is. But I still don't understand how it connects to the present. Anyway, time to give my brain a rest and my body. Let's see what's on TV.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's programme. This evening we'll be looking at characters in the conflict. I'm joined this evening by my guests, Tal Ben David, who is an officer in the Israeli Defence Force, Sami Hassan, an Arab student in Tel Aviv University, and Yitzhak Cohen, a Jewish settler and practising lawyer. We had hoped that a representative from Hamas, the ruling party in Gaza, would join us, but no one wanted to take part. However, they have sent a statement which I'll read to you. We do not recognise the State of Israel and are committed to its destruction. To take part in a programme on Israeli TV would be a violation of our charter. I think they've made their position clear. Anyway, I want to welcome you, our guests. Let's begin tonight's discussion with you, Tal. What have been the challenges for you as an army officer?
One of the biggest challenges for me was when we were sent into Gaza, Operation Cast Lead in 2005. We were led to believe that when the Jewish settlers moved out and the Arabs moved in, there'd be peace, but there wasn't.
And Yitzhak, as a Jewish settler, what did the move out of Gaza mean for you?
Oh, it was devastating. Israel gained the territory of Gaza in 1967 and the Six-Day War, and my family resettled there. But when we had to leave and the Israeli forces brought us out of our homes along with the police, it was devastating. Now my family have settled in Judea and Samaria, and the same still might happen. Just a minute. What you call Judea and Samaria, we Arabs call the West Bank. I have family living there under Israeli occupation. Look, Sammy, we think differently about this. In law, land either belongs to a sovereign state or it is occupied. The issue is whether or not it is illegally occupied. I don't think it is. The peace process between Jews and Palestinians is still underway, and final borders haven't been decided.
Well, it's quite clear that you have opposing views on these matters.
What about the wall separating Israel from the West Bank?
Hey, it's a security fence. It's separating Israel from the Palestinian bombers. I should know. I operated 6 months on that barrier myself.
It's apartheid. It's like South Africa. Just a minute, Sami. In South Africa, you would never have seen white people and black people sitting on buses together in the ways you see Arabs and Jews sitting on the buses with each other here in Israel. Also, you wouldn't see Arab court judges sending Israelis who deserve to go to jail. We also have Arab ambassadors. It is not apartheid.
Oh, my head hurts. What a complicated situation.
Try to understand before you rush to judgment. Those in conflict are weary and worn.
Object of hate or of political porn?
Where is the heart that understands?
The light and love the truth demands.
It's been a whistle-stop tour in many respects, as we've glimpsed a little of the history and the current climate. It's important to remember that all we and most other people have seen is just the tip of the iceberg. To understand the complexities of this region would take months, years even. These matters need to be handled with care.
What a stay, what a stay. It began in just an ordinary way. I booked a tour. I wanted to know if what I'd heard was true. To see for myself and not just accept a media view. Now I've been.